Welcome to Kicking It Local, the podcast all about the football community in South Australia. I'm your host, Johnny Keko. I'm joined by Scott Tunbridge for part 2. And if you haven't listened to part 1 already, make sure you go back and listen now. Otherwise, here is a quick refresher.
I trialled with Blackburn. I've trialled at Blackburn Rovers when I was 17. I was fortunate enough to be spotted by a scout here.
Yeah.
I went over and another Aussie was there on trial at the same time. His name's James Johnson. So James Johnson's now the CEO of the FFA, I believe.
Yeah, Football Australia,
Australia. Off I went, and went over to Scotland with a trial with a club called Hamilton Academical. Everyone knows everyone, but sure enough, I rocked up in the dressing room and there was an Aussie sitting down next to me and it was Ian Fife.
There you go.
Neither of us knew we were going to be there. And I was like, Fifey, how you going? He's like, yeah. So that actually, that was probably the best thing for that trial was, and that's the experience of other trials. It's lonely and you don't have people to bounce off and just bring you back to normal. So I ended up finding myself without a club.
That was in pre-season?
Yeah, so this was before the season started with the A-League, before the season had started with, the season was due to start that weekend maybe? It was that close, like it was weeks away. My wife had, I think, bought a ticket. She bought a ticket to go through Europe at that stage. I remember having a really big chat with her because she was like, "What am I going to do? Like, I'm going over there," because we'd bought a ticket this way to go back, I reckon, and we were not knowing what was going to happen and how we were going to manage that. And yeah, anyway, the story goes, I didn't make it there at Perth in the end. Unbeknownst to me, Mimi Saric actually trialled fantastically and got a contract. Can't remember the other player, Luca someone. Anyway, he got a contract in that as well, and I went back to Scotland having no club, nothing really. I rang up a few people when I was over there. Derek Ferguson was one who actually I played. During my trial at Adelaide City, Derek Ferguson was the Scottish player that was playing for Adelaide City. Yeah. So when I went back to Scotland, he was at Hamilton, and we were like, "Oh my god!" So anyway, he ended up connections
for you.
It's
coming.
This is what I'm saying. Like it just, I think genuinely, if you're nice and you're a decent human being, some of these doors open because of that. We always had a good affiliation. Not that I really knew him that well, but. Yeah, enough from Hamilton that he went on to a different place. I trialled with them on the Thursday night, had a contract offer from him that night, basically, of which I said I'll think about because I think they were Div 2. Like I'd had to go down another division, which I didn't really see as a good move, but possibly a necessity, given that I didn't have anything going on at the time. Then Hamilton got beat 5-0 Saturday, and I'd signed for them on the Sunday for the third time for the third season.
How was that for you? Did you regret that move, or was that the right move at the right time? Or
it was definitely the right move at the right time. To be honest, if you'd asked me before I went, I would have been like, I'll never go back sort of thing. At that stage, I felt a bit put out because I felt like I'd done okay and still got shipped on. But I've got nothing but good things to say, if I'm honest, about my time at Hamilton. The club in general were incredibly warm. The fans were incredibly warm. I still like to see how they're going now. It's just football. It wasn't anything that was detrimental to me. They didn't see me as the path at that stage, and then reconsidered, I guess. And then I got signed up for the third year. Now,
after the third year at Hamilton, it did come to a final end at the club, and then you finally got back to Australia playing for Newcastle Jets. How did that come about? Did you have to go back to Australia, did another round of trials, or did someone reach out to you? Or
no, this time I ended up having a contract before I come back. It was kind of evident, to be honest with you, about halfway through even that season that I may not be there for another year. I'd struggled with a few injuries. That year, we'd had some successful runs with like FA Cup and that. I think we got the furthest that Hamilton have gotten the FA Cup, which was bizarre to get some of these sort of accolades and that for the club, And then we went away from there. I knew that was going to come to an end. So my agent had sort of had something tied up before I got back here with the Jets.
Did you tackle it differently this time around for the A-League? Because last time you did the trials, nothing happened. Is that why you decided to do the contract
Yeah,
before
absolutely.
coming? Yeah, it is.
Absolutely, that played into my mind big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt confident that I was of the standard that I could still come back into the A-League. I knew a lot of people around the way that were still playing, that felt like that I deserved somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Well, that year, in hindsight now, looking back on it, was the best year for Newcastle Jets. They won the league that season, 2007, 2008. But for you personally, you only played 5 games in that year. How did you find the move? How did you find it initially getting there, and then at the end of the season, how did you look back on it?
This is probably my toughest year anywhere. I was treated terribly by the coach. I started off really well. It took me a little while to get. I actually came back. My father-in-law got cancer and was diagnosed with cancer. We wanted to move closer to home, so that was part of the impact of me. I sort of started saying that I won't be over in Scotland anymore, and that started the conversation about coming back. Then I got to the Jets. So we moved to be closer to family, and I came back. In honesty, I personally, on a personal note, in front of goal, that was my best year. Like in training, everywhere, they say there's that year that it comes to you, that you get 27 or whatever, when it all just kind of falls into place miraculously.
Yeah.
And I thought, sure it doesn't. But that was one of those years where it felt like everything I did would be a goal. It was easy. I really struggled to start with moving from the Mitre balls in Scotland to the Nike balls, and just the difference in temperature. There was actually quite a big difference with how little you had to hit the ball and how much movement it had.
Yeah.
And I felt like the good pre-season month, I struggled with that, which possibly didn't set me up for the season well, maybe. But I was treated probably pretty poorly as a player. Probably one of my regrets is I didn't speak up about it at the time, because it probably hurt me in terms of my future career. But I was getting told I'd get to the start of training and it'd be Scott, Joe, John, you go over there and you go over there and train, rest of you boys over here. And I was like, what do I do? And he's like, I don't care what you do, just go over there. So it was something that, as a human being, I didn't respect him all that much for that, and probably don't have much respect to this day.
Was there any reason that could have happened, or?
Look, I don't know exactly. Look, the president there had signed a marquee player, Mario Jardel, so there could have been some influence from above to play him. I have not undoubtedly would say that was some of the pressures. I always wonder. There was a pre-season game we played in New Zealand, and I always wonder about this game. It's played on my mind because we played in a game of which I came off at not half-time. I came off as part of the game. Came up at half-time break. I actually was throwing up and at half-time.
Yeah, jeez.
Because I was ill, but I didn't say anything. Like, I just got on with it. I did mention it, but it was almost like it was brushed off. Like I probably didn't really forcefully go, look, I'm not in a good state. I don't know how much I can give you. I just kind of got on with it because this is one of the few games that I'd played in pre-season. I realised that every minute I had at pre-season helped me set me up for the start of the year. So I came off about 15 minutes into half-time. I was the only time in my whole career that I've asked to come off. I just said, I can't do it anymore. I had a short attention span where I'd go and get the ball and then I'd just be really vague. I was just probably severely dehydrated, in honesty, because I couldn't keep any fluids down. And I always have wondered whether he just went, he's not up to it mentally, I always wondered if it was that. But I'll never know, really, in honesty. But there was a disdain that, whether it was directed from above or just something he didn't like about me. But I ended up, we trained 3 times a week. Obviously, I juggled and took free kicks. Free kicks were amazing, by the way, that year, but I never got on one. But I knew I was playing for my livelihood. So the days we weren't playing, I was doing 6-7K runs because I knew that there'd be one day that he'd come over and go, we need you, because... Well, Mario wasn't really up to it, to be honest with you, and he was probably taking my place on the bench. Joel Griffiths got injured one day, and sure enough, Gary came across and said, "Hey, Scotty, how you going? We need you." And I was ready to go.
Yeah. What was he like when he finally needed you? Did he change his tone a little bit, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course he did.
I want every part of my body wanted me to tell him to shove it, but
Yeah.
I was playing for my career as well, and at that stage it was selfish. I was playing to do well. I did well. I scored in the first game and played really well. And I don't think he much enjoyed that because it meant that he probably had to have me in the squad next week. So, yeah, and then the next game I played against Adelaide United, won a free kick actually for us, which Joel Griffiths curled in against United.
Yep.
And then just slowly got ousted. But to this day I don't really know why, but I felt like that was one of the years where goals were easy. If I had more opportunities, that I would have done well.
So you weren't getting played at, as much in the system there at Newcastle Jets, but you guys won the grand final. On a personal note, the way things panned out for you, did you celebrate it as much as what you would have like any other season, or was it a little bit different?
This is actually almost like I feel like I'm constantly saying another interesting story, but at that time, so obviously I'd been completely ousted. Felt like I was not part of the team.
Yeah.
And that's actually a lie. No, I felt like I wasn't part of Gary's plans. But as a team member, I was very well respected amongst all the players. I think, thought very highly of. I just didn't have the backing of the manager. I know that Joel and I had a really good partnership, if I'm honest. A few games that we played together, I was excited to be playing next to him. The way that Gary played, he played with one up front, with the 4-3-3, which we see quite common now. At that time, it wasn't necessarily all that common. And I think Joel would probably speak the same, that we were quite looking forward to playing with each other. We had one game we played against Sydney FC. Actually, Fifey gifted me a goal that day. He tried to control it in the box and it fell to me and I put it in the top corner. But whenever we played together, we just had a really good understanding. And when it went to 1 on the team sheet, I never expected to start, in honesty. Joel that year was incredible. I would have been the support act really in the formation. I'd have come on and made up the last few minutes, and that's kind of where I knew I sat for that year. We had a really good group. And I remember it because I was fuming by the end of that year because of my lack of time and the way that I was treated so poorly by the manager. As a human being, let alone a soccer player, just really poor. But the unit was really quite good. We're all behind each other.
Yeah.
And that often happens when people at the top or the club aren't great. The unity of the team has to excel to get anything on the field. And that's happened at a few other clubs I've been at. So as far as that goes, I remember coming home to my wife and I said, all right, it's finals. Everything's out the window. And she was like, what are you talking about? Oh my God, how do you get your head around that? I said, no, well, we're playing for an A-League medal now. As part of this team, I can't upset the dressing room. I can't do anything. I'm behind this club, this team to get an A-League medal, I could play a part for 10 minutes. I could not play a part, but my part right now is making sure that this dressing room's harmonious to the end of the year and we get through it that way.
Were you on the bench for most of the finals, or?
I didn't really feature, to be honest with you. Again, I could argue that I felt like I should have, but I didn't. There was probably the biggest kick in the teeth. A fantastic player now, and at the time was still a good player. But when I had a chance to play, we had a few injuries, and that Dutchie actually went down and picked up James Holland from the AIS, and he came in and started in front of me. So that's how much it kind of hurt. Great guy. I actually thought he'd go on to possibly captain Australia. He was just really good kid, and I don't know what he's doing now, to be honest with you. But really good guy, really good kid. Played really well, but often, that's how I was sawn at. That's how I was looked at that time. I wasn't in his plans, so it would have taken a few injuries for me to get near the thing that day.
Well, you at the end of the season, you won the grand final. I think you would have celebrated with the boys.
Absolutely. I look like I'm photoshopped on the photos, but this is going back to the Motorola like K10 or Razor those days. So the photos I've got look somewhat Mario related, if that at all. And I think I might have even lost my phone on that night. I have very little memories of that night. That of pictures anyway. So most of them we had photos with the A-League stuff around my the A-League whole trophy around my.
Yep, the toilet seat that most people call
the
it.
toilets. Well, I was going to say that, but I didn't know if that was the.
That's an affectionate name now. I think everyone loves it now, calling it the toilet seat.
No, yeah, I got a photo of that. It was a fantastic night. It was bizarre, and it was fantastic to be a part of. I wish I could have played more of a part in the finals, and that's, I guess, a little bit of the bizarre sort of feeling with winning a trophy. We've won medals in that since, and it's been quite a different feeling. But I'm still incredibly proud. I played a big part, and even just playing a part of being in that dressing room and being positive, I think still had a good impact on how we ran that finals.
So at the end of that at that season, you're around the age of 25, mid-20s. Still, that's pretty much a peak, and sometimes the beginning stage of some people's career. But for you, at the end of that season, there was no future talks for Newcastle. I know the way it all.
I had a 2-year contract.
Yeah.
I could have stayed, really, if I'm honest. I had a 2-year contract when I signed there, which was great coming back from Hamilton with the insecurities of 1 year we often had there. So I had a 2-year contract. I could have stuck my heels in and stayed, but like I said to you before, my father-in-law had cancer at that time. We were happy to be close to home. My wife actually got pregnant at the time we were in Newcastle. So I had my daughter on the way. I was happy to go home. Arguably career-wise, I probably could have dug my heels in and just stayed and been miserable and see what happened. But for my personal life and family life, I didn't think that was the right thing, so I came back home.
Yeah. Well, Adelaide United, obviously closer to home in the A-League. Was there any talks there? Did you try initiate something?
Yeah, look, at the start, I got told that I would come back and I'd be looked at. To be honest, I don't know how much of that was truth or not, which to this day, I guess I'll never know. But I felt, that was the case. So I had options to go to New Zealand too, but they were looking at a marquee player. They basically said, if we don't sign him, it looks like it might be you. Again, how much is hearsay and how much is truth? I had a good relationship with Andrew Durante from the Newcastle days, and he had a big influence, obviously, as we know now, at Wellington. I think he was in talks and that for me. But they didn't. They signed Paul Eiffel, and I didn't. I stayed here. I did really well in my eyes here. I think scored 7 in 4 games or something like that. If I'm honest, I probably expected a little bit of a call for a trial or something like that, and it didn't happen. I felt a little bit hurt, if I'm honest, at the time, because it was Aurelio Vidmar I'd played with. So, I probably would have just liked a call from him to just say, you're not what we're looking for, and just been something like that, rather than I felt like I was dangled a carrot, did my bit, and didn't really get the rewards. But, mate, this is football. It's just, we could tell sob stories and nearlies for thousands of people out there. I was fortunate enough that I got what I did, and then I came back to Metro to continue here.
How do you find playing at Metro? Because you ended up playing almost half your career there. The amount of games you played for them, over 100 games, and then actually was it more than that?
No, I played again injury prone. I had 1 year really where I didn't get injuries. So I've always had injury or work. It's a local league, so you've got stuff where I used to be a carpenter rigger. We'd go away for work for a month at a time and stuff like that. So it's one of those things that you had to weigh up, and a couple of years there I was away. So I think the figure is 186 or something like that. It's in that 180 mark or something like that. So
and you scored over 90 goals.
Yeah, 96 goals it was.
So pretty much 1 every 2 games.
it was pretty close.
Yeah. Well, how did you find the time there? Because during that period, MetroStars had a pretty successful run. You played. You've won Federation Cup. You played in the National Premier League final series, FFA Cup. Some great experiences there. How did you find it personally? Did you enjoy it?
Amazing. Metro, basically under Mike Barnett, got a team together of a lot of people that had played with each other. Like back in my junior days, Lee Robertson played the year above me at the Downs, so there was already we knew of each other as well.
Yep.
There were some that we didn't, some that I didn't know of. Dan Godley was at Adelaide City with me. Van Dommel was still a good mate of mine to this day. Well, they all are really, but Adam I catch up with more frequently. So they just got together a group of people that were really good professionals and there to create some success and a culture at the club, which in honesty, I don't know much about them before that day and what they were like as a cultural sort of club, but they've always been like a family. They've treated all their people really, really well. And yeah, I'm proud to say we've had some great success at that club. I actually still believe we should have had more, unfortunately. But again, that's what we don't like about finals sometimes.
Yeah. Well, some of the moments you had there playing the National Premier League final series. How was that for you to play in that? We don't see it at the moment. There's talks in May return. We don't know, but that's when all the teams that finished top across Australia in the National Premier League obviously play against each other in another final series.
Yeah.
How was that for you to be able to play in something like that?
That was amazing. That was probably one of my highlights of the career, really, that I had. Mainly because I'd played in a state team. I was fortunate enough to play in a state team for SA, but just didn't have that same feeling. It really had the state teams when you play state of origin for NRL and that's a real, love and hunger and rivalry. And I felt like when we played for, I wasn't even playing for. We were playing for MetroStars, but we were as much playing to give the state a bit of a stamp on the map, like to say, because we're constant underdogs, ISAs, this and constantly talked down to. If you're from here, you know what we're talking about. But yeah, we're always like the runt of the litter, so to speak. So we had a big part to play in putting SA football on the map in our eyes as a team, I believe. So that was a fantastic journey of which I think everything was pipped against us. We had away games every week. We had the hottest day ever in October in Perth. Just everything was against us with most of those weeks, and we took it out with fantastic.
How would you compare that? Because you played a bigger role in that than you did with the A-League, but how would you compare the way when you celebrated that compared to the Newcastle Jets grand final win?
They're both pretty comparative, to be honest with you. To be honest, we celebrated every weekend that NPL similar, our Tuesday training sessions after after those NPL wins weren't that attractive. We had some big nights out. We celebrated hard, play hard, celebrate hard. So it was work hard, play hard. So there was some really, really good team bonding moments when we were away because we had every away trip. But it was something that we'll probably never forget, with a lot of us. But a real different feel. Like I said to you, I was still part of a team at Newcastle. I just wasn't wanted by the manager. So the actual unit was still really good. We hung out together regularly. Difference was, I guess, we walked home to 8,000 people at Newcastle at a park, singing your name and getting the medal and that. But we had more close to 100 to 80 at Metro. But the feel was very, very similar. But it's just probably more the pride as to how much say I had in it is a different feel.
It would have been a good experience to play on that national level, but you also did get to do it again in the FFA Cup. This is another big thing that clubs get to do. I've spoken to a lot of people that have played on this level. Nicholas Bucco talked about Adelaide City playing there. I've spoken to others that have had the opportunity, including Jonathan Negus, who was in your team, who came to the club. I think Robbie Saracino was assistant coach back then. He got a call to come and play with you guys for the FFA Cup, and he had a good experience there. What was it like for you to play the FFA Cup in that team at that time? Was it?
Yeah, great. Like any of these competitions are outside until there's like a B League, so to speak, for the A League, is probably one of the few formats that I guess anyone feels like the NPL that they get a chance to show what they're about. Because it is a good league, and I think I alluded to this earlier, a lot of the players that are on those fringes, they just need senior players of a better standard to learn off of. And some people are better at doing that than others. So, any time that we can get on that platform and being able to play with the likes of Nigo and many others that I got to play with was great.
And one of the reasons why I bring up Jonathan Negus as well is because I spoke to him earlier in this series, earlier in the year, about his career, and he spoke about a particular moment in a game of the FFA Cup, and it included you in this moment. So I want to get your side of the story here and see what you have to say about this. Let's have a listen.
Does he put me in it?
We get to go to Sydney to play Blacktown. This team was heavily favoured. They were very strong. They'd had a number of only recently sort of released A-League players, some that were still making their way up to the A-League. And we played 45 minutes of just hell where they just destroyed us. And then pull back one, and then pull back another, get up 2-1. I think it was in like the 70th minute or something. And then we had a penalty to kill the game in the 90th. And Scotty Tunbridge kicked it down the street instead of in the goals. You should never have taken that, Scotty. It was Fabes' to take.
Is that a bit controversial? That
not really. Like, they were a little bit dirty on each other at the time, but I really think it should have been Fabes because he won the penalty.
So, what's your thoughts there on that moment?
I actually remember it quite well. Look, I was just a designated penalty taker. I remember I put the ball through to Fabes. The problem was, to be honest, the ref, Fabes had just about a clear goal that he was going through on, really. So he just about had the chance to put it away. So he probably felt aggrieved that he, should have had the chance to score. I took the ball off him. There's probably a few words, parted ways sort of thing. And I put it down. To be honest, I smashed it exactly how I wanted to. I thought it had nestled in the top corner. It didn't. It went over by, well, he says kick it down the street. I think if you miss by a mil and it's only a thing, it does look a lot further. But I missed. And they actually nearly went down the other end and scored straight after. So it was a bit nerve-wracking moments. But that's, one of, I think, 2 penalties I've missed in my whole career. So it was just one of those moments. But there's a nice embrace that Nigo and I have on that night after that thing. There'll be somewhere on Insta. But when I think of that night and I think of Nigo, I think of this moment because it's one of those moments where you go in for a hug.
Yeah.
And you normally would, put your head different ways. But we both went the same way in an awkward embrace. And it's made a hell of a photo, but it was a real awkward moment that we both laugh about now. But look, all of it we can all laugh about now. I think even Fabes at the end had a bit of laugh about it. But in honesty, it was my pen. I was a penalty taker. That's how I looked.
I just thought I needed to bring it up because I actually stumbled across it. I forgot about the moment. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. This would be a great time to ask you and to get your side of the story.
It would have been a bit, with how much we fought that night, I truly wish I'd scored it just to take the pressure off because, like Nigo put the first half backs against the wall, one of those nights where we really looked like a really poor side, if I'm honest, for the first half. We came out, changed the tune totally in the second half, and we just took our chances generally, bar that one.
But afterwards, obviously, it was a bit of a laugh about it. Afterwards.
You can when you won. Doesn't matter, does it? No, me and Faves were good mates. We all went up and had a laugh about it after and that, really. No one really apologised. We just got on with it, and that was it. Really, it was just one of those things I've come across. That was one of the things I found out when I was overseas. Like, we are so nice in Australia. Like overseas, they are ruthless. Like there's fights at training. There's all sorts, and it's just put down to passion, and it is. But they're playing for their lives, and we have very few moments where we're anything other than nice to each other, and that was nothing really. It was just I took it. I missed. I took it on my shoulders, and that was it.
That happens anywhere anyway. So, but what a good experience though to look back on now. Is that would that be one of the better experiences that you've had, like the memorable experiences you've had in your career, despite what you've done?
Yeah, I think I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a few cup runs. There was one, like I said, with Hamilton, we went to the quarterfinals. It was of the FA Cup then. I actually had a header I should have put away, if I'm honest, in the quarterfinal, and we had a replay. Yeah. And that's the one that was to go through, but I had a header I could have put us through, and that was the furthest that Hamilton ever gone. So that was one of those highlights. The other one was there was a Bells Cup final for Hamilton, which is basically everyone outside the Premier Division, which we got to the final of with St Mirren. I scored on that day, but we lost 2-1. And then, really on a personal note, the FA Cup nights are huge, and the NPL series is still the highest. That's the highest that I've probably taken as a group. It was just a great thing. Like I said, I've got the A League and all that. But as a unit, that was just something we weren't expected to really do well in. We were expected to. Nigo probably speaks about it. We were supposed to lose against South Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I think even everything on the your Twitters or Facebook or whatever was going around the forum at that date of how they were promoting was that seeing the final South Melbourne. I used to play for South Melbourne. We battered South Melbourne. We battered them for 20 minutes. Of that is when the footage cuts out that you don't see on the live footage. But we gave them a pummeling. It could have been 4-0 up after about 15 minutes. You don't see that on the footage. It looks like a much closer game, but I actually scored against them in a very blustery, windy conditions. After only scoring 3 for them when I was there on thing to score 1 against them was lovely.
Yes, on a personal note, it would have been good to go against them.
Yeah, it was great. I remember the goal distinctly because it was blowing a gale. Nigo would probably have told you as well. It was blowing a gale. The ball was just running away from me. I had to hit it then, or it was going to the corner flag.
Yeah.
Just about that's how I felt at that time. Caught it sweetly, and it just went in at the near post, and that ended up sending us through after Dan had they put a penalty over as well. So the highlights looked favourable to them, but in honesty, we deserved to go through that day.
Now when you finished up your career at MetroStars, it was a bit early than probably you would have wished. Unfortunately, there was a little bit incident that you had.
Yeah, so I ended up after one of my many things that I do, and I've changed to over my work career, so as they call it. I didn't call soccer real work, I was always told. So,
yeah.
So once I came back to Metro, I was a salesperson. Ended up getting into carpentry. So I'm a qualified carpenter.
Yep.
Rigger by trade, and I had an incident where I came off a ladder. Just I landed on my feet, but it was enough to just shove my hips in a different way, and then I later couldn't continue after sort of firing that up. So I ended up, I had to come to an end, not really on my terms, which I didn't like much because I didn't feel like I was finished. I ended up assisting actually that year although it probably doesn't say that on FSA notes, I was probably water boy. So I didn't have the qualifications, but I was helping out where I could with Michael Peroni, and Robbie Saraceno was the assistant at that time.
Yep.
So I called it a day a little bit earlier, but
Well, coaching ever a thing that you want to get into? Because I know you've done a bit of coaching with your kids. Is that anything you want to get into eventually?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. It's just not on my mind right now. I've got 3 kids that I have trouble running around. I'm studying to be a teacher, a primary teacher. So time is a bit time poor, and I couldn't do it with halves. I did do that assistant sort of role where, in the end, Robbie ended up becoming the coach, and I was the assistant to him in the end, really, or I'd help out, and just the amount of time out. Like, you could leave a game at the end of the game as a soccer player, and that's it. Like, you'd think about it, but not to the same planning aspect that you have to do with the coaching. And whilst I can see myself definitely in that space, I enjoy the youth space. I enjoy inspiring the young to love the game like I do. And if they're coaching at 40 like I am, and I've developed that passion, I consider that a massive win. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we do see you back in the game in that aspect at some point, because I know you did a little bit at Trinity. Was it Trinity?
Trinity College,
yeah.
So I did a little bit of that. I ran an academy for a few years, similar to the time where it started to sort of take off. I could see a space there, and I like to educate the kids, and I just wanted, to be honest, I was from the north, so I actually wanted to bring some good coaching to children in the north. I ended up landing in a school, which is possibly where I didn't see it starting, if I'm honest, but some of these things, as maybe even running this, it didn't start to where it is now. You take your paths, and ended up coaching there, loving it, loved my time there. I was an ex-scholar there, so it was I've still got a good affiliation with Trinity.
Well, now you're trying to become a teacher, maybe you can start teaching football at a school.
And it's becoming more popular. Like that's becoming a bit more of a thing where they're educating, and there's. When I was going around, and I don't know if this is still how it is considered with the kids today, but school soccer wasn't considered much chop. You know what I mean? Like, it was just because you were like, at the time I was doing Sassy and I was doing all these other programs where I was in probably a more of a elitist environment. But Trinity's got amazing facilities.
Yeah,
amazing. Like, it's like carpet, the grass out there. The grounds are perfect. The coaches out there are really well educated. I know them well, Lee Cockrell and Ben Cockrell. They're they're all for the kids. They've
Yeah.
got a great sports head, and they bring this teaching background too, which I learned a lot off them when I was out there too, on how we can, get the message best across to kids and that. So they're delivering a fantastic program, and I just only hope that some of the kids can really get behind it, because they're blessed to have the facilities they do.
Absolutely, and it's good to seeing coaches like with Daniel Mullen, Marcella Karuska, and also Simon Catanzaro, and even Joe Mullen at some point, all coaching at different schools, which is a great thing to see them in the academies. They're obviously high school academies, but it's hopefully it's starting to grow here, I think. And
I think the culture around it is. I just hope that these the children don't they fail to, if they fail to utilise the resources they're getting.
Yeah.
It would be a like Simon Canzaro's amazing coach. I can't speak for all the others, but I'm sure they are too. Daniel Mullen I know well. But yeah, there's just resources that they can use greatly that I fear that some will look back on an opportunity they had and not use it as well as they could. So I really hope that they get behind the program how they should, and they invest in it wholeheartely.
What was Marcella Karuska? He's coaching CBC College, which actually has MetroStars current players playing for in the year 12s, like Ariath Pio and a few others. So it's cool to see. Then these players are coming through there as well. So it's future's bright, and also Man City teaming up with Daniel Mullen's school as well. So it's very good to see, and hopefully it's an avenue you can get your foot in as well one day.
Yeah, no, it's definitely becoming more popular. Definitely a space that I can see myself in. I think that given the time, I could give a lot in that space.
Well, it's been a great pleasure talking to you. Got to finish it off with the kick and the questions, and
I nearly forgot about these.
Yeah, I love it when people forget, or they haven't listened before. It's the best reaction I always get. I love it. But I'm going to wrap it up though, because otherwise Jonathan Negus will get a little bit annoyed, because I had to cut his short that time when I had him. But now I start to extend conversations a bit more, so he will be spewing. He didn't get enough airtime.
He's got plenty to talk about. I'm sure he'll be back.
I'll have to get him back. I think he wants more airtime. But the kick and the questions. First of all, who would you love to kick it with on the park? Anyone in the world?
I'm a Liverpool supporter, so this one's pretty easy for me. Robbie Fowler.
Yeah, okay.
By far and away, just my idol. He was so good. To be honest, at the time that I became a striker from being sick that day, I had Robbie Fowler's Hot 100 on repeat, and I just tried to pick up as much as I could. Off of him, and I just idolised him at the time. I know there's legends since and that, but nothing will quite compare to him. I missed him by a year.
I was going to say,
I'd have loved to have been able to catch up with him, and even I think your next question's about who'd you like to go out with. I reckon he'd be a laugh in that situation too. He just seems like a really good guy. Has got a great ability to score goals, and looks like he didn't take it too serious. In a sense of like even his celebrations and stuff, like some are controversial in the end.
I was going to say
some controversial ones, but he just, I don't know.
But as a character, he is.
He bought that love. He was playing it because he loved it.
Yeah.
He got better at the game because he enjoyed getting better at the game by the looks of it from the outside. And I always admired him as a player.
Well, there you go. The kick and the question. The second one was, who would you love to kick it with on a Saturday night? Someone locally, someone internationally. Internationally, Robbie Fowler, I'm assuming. You're locking him in. And who would you love to do it locally?
I think this is really hard to pin down to one. I wouldn't mind getting together that team that won the NPL. Like just getting us all together again. And a lot of it is, Adam Van Dommel. I catch up with a lot, but I really enjoy catching up with him. So there's plenty of people, but I'd love to almost get a lot of my football mates in one room, really. If I was to be truthful, I've got some good mates overseas doing good things. I'd love to get them all in one room if I'm being a bit vague on it, but something like that would be really good because, as you know, probably coming on this show, when you're in that space, you've got a lot to talk about. When you're in that footballing space, you've got a lot to talk about, and the stories just come out and the nights get a little bit crazier than they should have been.
And the more people that are there from those moments, the longer the stories get, the more info. It's incredible.
Yeah, and like me, the longer you're out of the game, the more you're happy to talk about those.
No, it's an absolute pleasure talking to you, mate. It's very much enjoyed talking about your career and where it's all gone and the ups and the downs, because it's probably a good thing for these up and coming players to know that look up to players like yourself that have already had experience, that it's okay to have some disappointing seasons or years or moments.
Yeah, I tried to look as injuries as hurdles.
Yeah.
Like, it's just one you got to get over and get on to the next
Yeah.
one,
And setbacks are sometimes good for you because it's you get stopped for a certain reason, or you don't you get knocked back, but then you highlights that reason why you got knocked back, and then you can come back stronger.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But thank you so much, mate, for joining me. Absolute pleasure, and hopefully we can chat again soon.
Not a worry, Joe.
That was former professional footballer Scott Tunbridge. Make sure you subscribe to Kicking It Local wherever you get your podcasts so you can get a taste of the SA football community. Plus, follow Kicking It Local SA on Instagram and Twitter so you don't miss any of the action. See you soon!